wanted to give you an update about my trip with my daughter to see the Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. And I had a bunch of insights that I wanted to share. I was going to say that were helpful to me, and it really gave me some deeper understandings of life and even parenting. It was really interesting. So we'll see how this goes. I saw the Phantom of the Opera when I was in high school, and I absolutely loved it, and I was obsessed with the music and all throughout college, and I just absolutely loved it. And it was the first show that I saw, and I think I said I was in high school, and it was really a cool thing because my daughter is exactly the same age as I was when I saw it, so I was able to take her. And I remember one of the most, and spoiler alert for the Phantom of the Opera, so just saying, you're gonna find out what happens, a little bit of stuff. But so what ended up, I remember when I was in high school and we went, and this is 20 years ago, so there was a huge bang. Like, it was like 5-10 minutes into the production, and there was this huge bang, and everybody was like shocked. And I remember that was like a very famous thing, one of the famous things about this amazing show. And when I went there yesterday with her, I understood that it was going to be an updated show because it's years have passed, and I'm sure they would update it. But I thought the basic stuff was the same. But I definitely didn't think that this bang, I was anticipating it when I was there. So we were sitting there, and I'm watching the show start, and it was just incredible. And my body was anticipating it because I remember how loud it was and how scary it was, and it just never happened. It just did not happen. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we have to wait a little bit more. It's when the Phantom is going to get upset because they're not doing what the opera house is not doing exactly what they want. So then it's going to be, and maybe it'll be a little bit later than what it was a while ago. And it never happened. It just didn't happen. The chandelier ended up falling. They did something absolutely incredible with the lighting. I mean, it was incredible what they did. So instead of it having a big bang, they ended up doing something very, very special with it. But it wasn't the bang. And I remember anticipating it, and I remember also telling my daughter, like, oh, I mentioned that there was going to be a bang. and she's just like, maybe you got it wrong. Like, maybe you misunderstood or something. Maybe you don't really remember. And I'm like, no, I remember. And I said, okay, I don't know. I said, and then I was also trying to give her own experience, right? To not make her think what's going to actually happen. And so, and also, when I saw the Phantom of the Opera, they didn't take off his mask. Like, you never saw his face. And in this one, they did. And it was, wow. And also, the ending wasn't the same. I mean, he basically, you kind of get the idea that I just remember that when I saw it, they shot him and then he died, and that's not what happened in this one. See, I'm not going to give you a spoiler alert. I'm just saying that's not what happened. So what is my point in all of this? I was just thinking and remembering how my daughter absolutely loved the play, and I was just thinking, this is so what I have done with her in my life, is that I had my own experience with this play. And then 20 years later, going back and having a completely different experience with the same exact idea, the same exact play, but it's like a different life. It's like a different life. It's a lifetime. It's a lifetime of difference. And what I wanted to do was take her to my experience. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, well, when I saw it, this is what happened, and then this is what happened. And I myself was even missing some of actually, like, they made it in such a beautiful way that it was even more beautiful if I was not so stuck on the nostalgia of the way that I was used to experiencing it. It would have been a completely different experience. And it was a really beautiful experience, and she had a very beautiful experience of it. She absolutely loved it. My point in this whole thing is related to life and even parenting. I just saw how I had an experience. I was physically anticipating a certain scary thing to be happening that absolutely didn't happen. And the second time that I saw this play, it was familiar, and all of the good parts were in it. It's just not all of the things that I remembered were in it, and it was a different experience. And it just where I'm going with this is that this generation, like this, our kids, they're living in a different generation, in a different world that is not necessarily supposed to be experiencing the same thing that we experienced, or that I experienced, that you experienced. And subconsciously, like, I just want them to experience the same thing, the good stuff and the stuff that wasn't so good. And that's how programming happens. I think that's how we just naturally end up passing down to our kids what our experience is, whether or not they're positive or negative. It's just, we just want them to kind of experience it. We want them to have a better experience than we do, I think, most of the time. And we don't realize that it's possible that we're actually trying to reenact our own life onto our children. and it's not going to ever happen. They have their own experience, and your kids need to have their own experience, and mine do too. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say. I guess that it just was an interesting experience to see how even physically my body wanted to react to it. And I think that this is what's happening. I think that the times are changing, and our bodies are now more open and receptive to love and to change and healing in a way that my generation necessarily wasn't. There was big bangs, and yeah, there's things going on today, but obviously that are unpleasant, but ultimately it's so that way we can transform what has happened in the past and make it a completely new experience. So my daughter just absolutely loved every bit of it, and she was telling me things about it that she absolutely loved that I missed. And what if your kid is actually so much more in tune with what's present and what is going on now, and it's you, or in my case it's me, that needs to acclimate to the new reality. All right, those are my thoughts. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for listening.